Evening all, how are we all doing? On what is a very cold and rainy Sunday here in the UK. Don't know whether you can hear it, but the rain is absolutely hammering down on the roof here. Lovely to see our usual crowd. Yeah, just wipe your feet on the like button. That'll solve two problems. Yeah, you're not wrong though, Ishtar. It is always raining here. Yeah, we were promised snow down here, but yeah, none. Just heavy rain. That's all we're getting. Hasn't actually snowed here for 5-6 years now. It's been crazy. Right, well, why don't we take a look at what I've been up to? Switch to mini-me. So if you recall on the previous stream, I was filling out all of the stellar data and making what was an enormous macro, which is here somewhere, there. So we made this enormous macro with all the data points that we need for the star. And tonight we'll be doing the same thing for planets. So this one should be done now, and we take a look, wrong button, we take a look at our stellar data. You can see that for stars we now have our Roche limit, our scattered disk, which is basically the equivalent of a Kuiper belt, the tidal truncation limit, which is where the gravitational pull of the star becomes roughly equal with the tidal forces of the galaxy as a whole. So the rotation of the galaxy is obviously creating tidal forces with the fluid dynamics. So the tidal truncation limit is kind of the effective gravitational pull of a star before objects start to be affected by the general fluid dynamics of the galaxy itself. So that is distinct from the Hill radius, but is kind of the practical cap. So although the technical Hill radius might be larger, the practical limit is more in line with the tidal truncation limit, because that's where things like comets start to get pulled off by the rotation of the galaxy. So the tidal truncation limit is pretty much the outer edge of an Oort cloud. So when we start generating Oort clouds for stars, this is the distance we'll be using for defining the outer edge of that cloud. And then the orbital characteristics of a star is kind of irrelevant right now because the star is just sat in the middle. Once we have multiple stars orbiting a barycenter, then these values will start to mean something. Yes, Team Ready, pretty much. So if there was no tidal forces from the galaxy itself, then the Hill sphere or the Hill radius would be the theoretical upper limit of where the star can grab onto something. And right now this is based on the average distance and mass of stars in the Milky Way. So it's not an exact value, because technically the gravitational radius of a star is technically infinite, although it is also based on the speed of light. So however far gravity could have gotten in the time period that the star's been alive is its gravitational radius. But if we give our average distance between stars in the Milky Way and the most common mass of stars in the Milky Way, which is kind of sort of upper M class, that gives us a figure of this. But the practical limit is more the tidal truncation limit. And this changes based on where you are in the galaxy. So in the in the inner system, the galaxy is spinning less quickly, so the tidal forces are less severe. So you would expect a larger value towards the center of the galaxy, although that then gets lower again as you get towards the core, because obviously it's a very tumultuous region. So that the further out you go, the smaller you would expect this figure to be, because the orbital speed is increasing. Something like that anyway. I only understand it at a very basic level. We also now have values for our temperature regions. So I've only included the pertinent ones. I mean, we do have like CO2 frost lines and things calculated as well, but they're not really relevant for the formation of the system. I mean, we could include them just as a bit of extra fluff, but the pertinent ones are the dust sublimation limit, and this is the point at which dust in the circumstellar disk basically gets evaporated. So planets cannot form, or could not have formed, closer to the star than this, because the star would have just nuked all the dust. The lava line is the point where planets can support a liquid lava ocean. Habitable zone speaks for itself. And the frost line is where non-metals, i.e. Water and hydrogen and everything, start to form granules, although the frost line is specifically referring to liquid water. So at 150 Kelvin, water in direct sunlight can start to form solids. So from this point, you would expect to have a lot more in the way of gas giants, because all of that water ice starts to form solid cores on planetesimals. Oops. So the way the systems are forming is you have larger iron cores from the star working towards the frost line, and then the percentage of iron core versus crust kind of decreases the closer to the frost line you get, as the heavier elements get less and less common the further away from the star you get. And then basically from the frost line, the volatiles, i.e. your water, starts to form solids, and therefore the size of the planetesimal gets bigger and now has a higher percentage of water ice versus rock, which is why you tend to find gas giants beyond the frost line, because there's a lot more mass there to be able to trigger runaway gas accretion. And then we just have our usual values for the star's characteristics and the star's surface details there. Oh, I need to remove that hash. So there we go, that is the star. The other thing, why is it not rendering an overview? Okay, that needs fixing now. Fix one thing and something else breaks. Okay, I shall investigate that in a minute. The other thing I added is, in order to calculate the scattered disk, we needed to know where the final planet was in the system. So with the way systems are generating, we're using up the circumstellar disk as we generate planets. So in order to work out where the outer edge of that disk would have been, obviously we need to know where the last planet was that was generated. So what we're doing is we do that first, and then we take that as our inner edge of the scattered disk, plus or minus a random amount of AUs, and then we randomly generate the outer edge of the scattered disk, again give or take half a dozen AUs or so. So this is the region where we form our dwarf planets. So we do the main planets first, and then we sprinkle a random number of dwarf planets in the scattered disk. And if we look at that on here, you can see that we now have this scattered disk region of often highly eccentric scattered disk orbits, and with quite extreme inclination sometimes as well. Armed with that information, I also added the dwarf planets from Sol as well. So I don't know how to pronounce some of these. I think it's Haumea. I'm assuming Haumea. I think that's actually Maki, Eris, and Sedna. Sedna's a crazy one actually. It has this mad orbit. It takes it all the way out there beyond Sol. So every star system now has the equivalent of a Kuiper belt like this. And the number of Kuiper belt objects is entirely random, and isn't catered for within the circumstellar disk mass, but they're such tiny objects that it doesn't really matter. And then what we'll do is we'll treat these dwarf objects as targets which need to be scanned to achieve 100% exploration, because they're generated as part of the general planetary mass. But then what we'll do is we'll also have things like comets and just asteroids and just general rock bodies spawning dynamically as you fly around. So because we've got enough seed space for one unique seed per cubic kilometer within a light year, as you're flying the ship around a system, you will find things like comets that just appear on the sensors, although more specifically rocks. I think comets will probably add so they appear on the list all the time, but things like just small asteroids and small lumps of ice will just spawn them dynamically, which means because we're not spawning them as part of the galaxy gen, it means there can literally be billions of them. So we can have billions, if not trillions, of just tiny bits of ice and rock, in the outer edges of the system that you will just stumble across, and you'll see them pop up on the medium range sensors when you're within range. Thank you. Was that Maki or Makey? I know they with some of the trans-Neptunian objects, they chose the name to be as easily pronounceable as possible. Something else I did actually, I did also put some lore on those. I don't think it's actually reading those values yet. Yeah, so these summaries here, which I will fix now as we go about adding this data. So I've put the discovery date and what these objects were named after, just as a bit of lore. Most of them being Greek gods and goddesses. Did I do anything else? I'll check my notes a minute. What did I do? Yeah, I fixed Mercury spelling. I fixed the level 2 and 3 names on Sol planets. Fixed planets not generating. Oh yeah, and the other big job I did is, because we now have some additional objects within star systems, and will continue to have additional objects in star systems, I've had to change how we handle the recording of the exploration data, or specifically the surveys, because we've now got the point where the system has been scanned, like historically, but then the system's been changed because of a change to the code. So that needed to be catered for. So what we do now, and this has been a bit of a nightmare to to wrangle. It's quite messy. I have to tidy this up over time. Basically, we take a snapshot of the exploration data as it stands. We then completely reset the knowledge for that particular system, having saved a copy of it. We then loop through the actual planets that exist in that system. So this basically takes account for the fact that it might have changed at some point because of a code change. We then compare the seed to the ID, because we're using the seed as the ID. And then if that already exists in the data, in the saved data, we check to see, is that knowledge level higher than the one we're currently adding? And if it is, we'll use the saved one. If it's not, we'll add the one we just saved. So if it was a new planet that's just been added, then we'll use the knowledge level that we've just scanned at. This also fixes any instances where the save data has gone a bit weird, because obviously the system's still being made at the moment. So throughout the dev builds, some of that exploration knowledge has become duplicated in some cases, or it's just gone awry in various other ways. So doing this just makes sure that every time you do a long or medium range survey, it will fix whatever problem there happened to be in the exploration data. So if you have a system that you've scanned in the dev build and it's gone like above 100%, or something weird has happened with it, just doing a long or medium range scan will completely fix that. So it's kind of self-healing. And this also now takes into account adding or changing things in the future. As I say, it was a bit of a nightmare to put together, but we got there in the end. Yeah, many. So right now it's capped at 15 TNOs. So TNOs as in trans-Neptunian objects. So this whole section here has been newly added since the last stream. So we define our scattered disk extents, so the inner and outer edge, and then right now we're adding between 3 and 15 TNOs. But what I will do is I will change this based on type of star. Obviously, the bigger the star, the larger the circumstellar disk. So we'll have generally more objects the larger the star is. But for now, it's just random between 3 and 15. And in the code base, I'm just referring to them as trans-Neptunian objects. And they'll always be dwarf planets. Although, that having been said, I think on the last stream, someone was asking, do we take into account migration of planets in the code? Right now, no, we don't. So when the star system is generated, we basically generate all the planets in place where they would have formed at the point the star system formed. What I will do at some point in the future, I will add some randomness to this. So like you could have a really cold gas giant which has been flung outside of the system, and then we would add this here as a trans-Neptunian object, except it would be a gas giant. And similarly in the other way around. So where we're generating our gas giants, we do take into account that gas giants can form within the inner system. The gas accretion is calculated based on the mass of the planet and the escape velocity of that planet versus the hydrogen and helium gases. So if the planet can hold on to hydrogen, then runaway gas accretion can occur. So things like hot Jupiters are possible within the code as it stands, although fairly rare. once we add some more randomness and planetary migration, then things like hot Jupiters will become slightly more common because they could have migrated to the inner system. But that adds an extra layer of complication because you then need to work out like the hill radius of that gas giant, and will it have gobbled up one of the inner planets when it moved in? So things like that. But that's kind of like version 2 of the system. Will there be anything akin to Thargoids? Yes. So there's going to be a big bad in the game, and that's an insectoid race known as the Scrag, and they will be kind of everywhere. So the idea is that they're a very old race, and they've kind of spread throughout the galaxy, and they are a hive-based species. So they'll have either settlements within the galaxy or just giant hive ships that they're flying around on, and they're kind of like the main troublemakers, at least in the region of the galaxy where Sol is. But because of the procedural system, we will have anything from really, really young worlds up to like billions of years old. So there could be races out there that are billions of years more advanced than Earth, and they're like gods in the galaxy, romping around in their giant starships doing things that we couldn't possibly hope to comprehend. And I'm basing that more on kind of like Babylon 5 and how alien races are presented in Babylon 5. I think that's a lot more realistic. So we'll do the same here, and we will have these ancient races which will either completely ignore you and just go about their business, or swat you away from their system. Yeah, we do intend to use an LLM for the NPC dialogue. I've spoken about this a few times, but the general rule that I want to follow with this is that the LLM must run locally within the game client, so we don't want to use any kind of online service for the LLM. It needs to be trained on our own data, so the LLM will have very little in the way of knowledge of things outside of the game. General knowledge, yes, because that will be part of the training data, but when you're talking to the NPC, we need to make sure that NPC is not referring to the latest football game that just happened, or things which are relevant to the 2020s and not the 2220s or 2260s in this case. So we need to make sure that those LLMs are very carefully trained and really lightweight, so that they can run on the client without obviously murdering the GPU, because they are quite GPU heavy. But once we find a model which is lightweight enough and trainable in that way, then yes, we will have LLM driven NPC dialogue. Sorry, that was Claire's laptop actually. One moment. Okay, that's Claire's laptop muted. Yeah, I don't want to go into too much detail on what the Scrag are, and beyond what I've already spoken about on Discord. But in a nutshell, if you think about, they are an ant-like species. So I'm basing them on ants, and they're going to be very much hive-based. A hive ship is generally self-managed and self-contained versus another, so it's not like they're going to be a single civilization spanning the entire sector that they're in. They're going to be singular pockets of different types of scrag, and one hive ship might have slightly different principles to another, but generally speaking they're just going to be a pain that you come across in the galaxy. And architecturally, I really loved the architecture in the game Scorn, obviously based on H.R. Geiger. So I love the architecture of the scrag to be kind of H.R. Geiger inspired, but in a insectoid way, not in a kind of gore way. So that hopefully gives you some idea of where we're going for with those. But you'll encounter them as part of DLC 1. We probably won't get those in for the sandbox. Again, they're going to be a handcrafted race as opposed to a procedural race, so they'll be handled differently. Yeah, I watched Lex many decades ago, and I just remember it being really weird. I can't really remember much about it other than how weird it was. Right then. So, we need to do everything we've done for the stars for planets. So essentially we need this monster list of data for planets as well. So if we duplicate that, I probably, actually no, I will. I won't probably do it, I will do it. I'll do a black hole version of this as well. I think it would it'd be useful to have a black hole specific version of the data, so that we can do things like distance of event horizon and things like that. Ah yes, and the summary. Thank you, Fristus. Not quite sure why that's not even generating anything, because all we're doing is we're feeding our description levels into the text based on the scan level that we're giving it. Okay, and then that is populated here, so that's what we're feeding into it there, and then those guys are, sorry, there. This will be what it is. Level 2 and level 3 knowledge is blank, so I think practically everything we need to know is in here anyway. Okay, so obviously that comes from the planet data, so we'll fix that one. Yeah, so we have a summary there. Summary there. Oh yeah, we need to copy paste that over as well, actually. Oops. So I just spotted this orbit. What the hell's going on here? That's an example of one of the extreme inclinations that the dwarf planets can have. Right, so knowledge level 0, we have a description. Knowledge level 2, we have a description. Knowledge level 1, we have a description. Yeah, so I think we're good. No worries, Delta, I shall remain silent. Why choose Unreal over Unity or Godot? Not sure Godot even existed when I started working on it. I have no idea how long it's been out for, but yeah, I've been using Unreal for about 7, maybe 8 years. And it's just what I started with and what I know. And I'm glad I did, to be honest, because the tech that we have in Unreal these days is far beyond what's in the other engines. Certainly graphically, things like Lumen and Nanite is it's just a crazy level of new tech. And of course megalights as well. Having an infinite number of shadow casting lights is just crazy in this day and age. The things you can accomplish with that are mad. Right, so the text summary can stay as is for planets. To be honest, most of it can stay as is for planets. Obviously things like temperature regions are not relevant. Neither is the spectrum, so we can get rid of those. Thanks, Ruddy. Yeah, I started working in Unreal around about 2017. I think it was 2016, 2017. Yeah, because I started off my hobby building stuff in Minecraft, like Starship mega builds, and then moved on to SketchUp when Minecraft was just wasn't detailed enough for what I wanted to build. And then having physical meshes of things, I really wanted to be able to walk around them in VR. So it just seemed like a natural step to move to Unreal at that point. I had an HTC Vive, so I got Unreal, started working with it, and yeah, that was around about 2016, 2017, and then yeah, now I'm here doing this. Right, so just thinking. Okay, so we've got this for our long range output. So we've got that. Now we also need the same thing on the medium and the short as well. So yeah, let's get rid of some of these tabs. Which enum is this? So that's object type. Was I using selected object there? Yeah. That makes more sense. So that just handles the widget switcher page. So we've got a target. We view the target details, and then depending on the type of object we have selected, we then pick the relevant output. Yeah, so black hole we will handle separately. For now, let's sort this one out. So basically, all of these text fields need to be replaced with the same text fields on the medium range sensors. But before we do that, because we've made some additions and changes to this, so We'll just copy that one over. I just remembered that one needed to be ever so slightly bigger. It's a bit of everything, to be honest, Ishtar. So I started off watching YouTube tutorials and seeing how other people had done things. So if I wanted to achieve something, like with the VR thing that I was making back in the day, I would download, say, a VR controller from the marketplace and then pick through it and sort of learn how other people had achieved what they'd achieved. It's how I learned PHP back when I was a web developer. I'd look at other people's code, see how they'd accomplished things, and basically learned by example. I generally learn more by trying and failing than I do, just reading a book or watching a video. I learn by doing, so I like to just get in there, try stuff, see what works, see what doesn't work, experiment. And most of my learning has been not so much how to do something, but how to do it correctly. So, there's a lot of things that in programming, you can accomplish the same thing 10 different ways, but only one of those 10 ways is going to be like the most efficient way of doing it. So, I would do something and it would work, but it would be atrociously inefficient. So, my learning curve has been learning how to do things the most efficient, the most performant way, as opposed to just find something that works. Yeah, exactly. Right, so we need... So long-range summary, widget switcher, long-range details for the star. So we need to take that one and then go to the medium range. Basically delete the one that's there. Pop in that one. Okay, so we've got all the same layout, all the same information. Obviously, it's all going to be different names, so they're going to need names updating. Same there as well. Wish it wouldn't jump up when you like delete something. Like it's expanded like this needlessly, all on its own. Like I didn't ask you to expand that. Right, so both the medium and the short range now have the exact same layout of information for stars. So what we need to do now is we need to take each of those data points, starting with our overview. I don't think we're doing anything with the title, so that doesn't technically need to be a variable. this one, however, and then we just need to do all of those twice. And then while we're at it, we'll just change long to medium so we don't get ourselves confused. So we don't need to change those, but we do need to change these. Let's rename them all first and then I can drag them in. Hey Scorpio, good to see you. So what I should have done with this, really, is I should have made this a separate widget, which I can then just bring in as an external widget onto the UI, and then I wouldn't need to do this 3 times. But for the sake of getting this demo update out, it's quicker to do this than it would be to externalize the widget, so I'll just do it the manual way for now. But at some point in the future, it would be more efficient to make each of the output screens, so where it displays all the data, separate objects, and standalone objects at that. So if I need to add a new piece of information or an entire new section of information, at that point I will then separate them out as a separate object. Yeah, so basically on the UI, each of the 4 modes is essentially a separate tab. So we have a widget switcher, which, depending on which one you click on, swaps out the widget with a different screen. So we've got 4 separate widgets essentially, which means we have 4 versions of all the data that's displayed here. I was originally just showing and hiding things as needed, but that turned out to be, because of the amount of stuff and the amount of data, a little bit unwieldy. So by making it 4 completely separate screens with completely separate versions of everything, it made it much easier to manage. So like, you know, when I'm up here and I just minimize all of this, you can see that on this widget switcher we now have 4 very nice self-contained panels, which can be worked on in isolation, where one doesn't affect the other. So layout and arrangement wise, just for practicalities of working with it, it was much easier to do it this way. Efficiency wise, you know, really you'd have it so that, you know, where you've got say the summary information here, you would have one version of this which you bring in to each of the 4 different modes as needed, or 3 in this case. Thanks. Yes, I kind of, they always pop up and I kind of just ignore them. I'm sure you can probably turn them off, but I haven't looked into how. But yeah, anyway, so that's why I'm doing it. What is on the surface a really inefficient way of doing it. So I'm just going to rename them all to medium range, drag out the variables, and then do the same with the short range. And that should essentially then be the stellar aspect of the sensors done and ready for the demo. And then after that, we'll do the same to the planets. So like with the stars, we'll perfect one on the long range, and then just copy paste that to the medium and short range. Greetings. Yes, Aaron. So they'll all have their voice output. I need to make it sound a little bit more like it's coming from the console. It is physically coming from the console, so the audio source is in the same position as the screen. But it sounds like it's kind of coming from everywhere. If you're standing next to it when someone presses the button, you can hear that it's coming from the console, but not when you're sat at it. So it would be nice if it was maybe slightly tinier or something. Oh yeah, that was that hash I need to delete. Yeah, I'll try and remember to have a look at it after the stream. I'm sure you can just turn notifications off. It's nothing particularly interesting, it's just people on my contacts list loading games up. Right, so the overview is done. Orbital is done. Temperature zones done. Yeah. Yeah, very true, CSI. Where's their dedication? Thank you, Werewolf Dev. I don't know if you're in the stream, but if you are, thank you. Right, so now that we've done all that, we now need to drag out those variables. Yeah, let's find them all again. So we start with the orbital characteristics. We need one each of these. So I need to do these one at a time. It's a shame I can't just like drag select and have those be selectable over here, but sadly it doesn't work like that. So I have to do each one manually. Fortunately, it does highlight them, so when you select something here, it highlights that same object there, so it makes it easy just to drag it out, which does take the pain away a little bit. To be honest, I might have them in the right order anyway. Should be that one. Yeah, then it's not obvious what the next one is, so yeah, so that wasn't that one. Typically. In actual fact, these are just the distance symbol, so it's easier to see if I tag that on the end. Yeah, when I do the planets one, I'll make sure that these have the same naming convention. Obviously I've used an ever so slightly different convention there and there, so they're in different locations on the list of variables. Because ideally you'd want them to be next to each other on here, just to make life a bit easier, and not have quite such a long name. Oh, sorry, Aaron. Something that Claire has learned while she's been doing some of the planters is that you need a lot of patience as a game dev, or just programming in general. Sometimes it's a lot of manual work, sometimes boring, repetitive, clickety-click manual work, and you just have to grin and bear it. Although you can make life easier for yourself by naming things a little bit more consistently. Oh, she definitely enjoyed the finished product. You know, it's that sense of accomplishment, you know, when you've finally got to the end of it. Okay, halfway there. Let's make sure this actually works a minute. Oh yeah, I can't run it yet because it needs inputs. Alright, fine, I'll finish the rest off. See, this one I actually named them the same, so it made that much easier. Why didn't I do that with the other one? Quite simply because I didn't think ahead. Thank you, Carlton. Yeah, I had my hair cut yesterday just for Archer. I don't think he's on the stream yet. He usually turns up later on, but yeah, he always mentions my hair, so I thought I'll get my hair cut just for him. Oh, did I, Joseph? Thank you. Yeah, so I did. I'm lucky I've got you guys paying attention. It's when you're doing all this like manual dragging, it's easy to get stuff mixed up. Because I've gone wrong here somewhere, haven't I? See you, Leo. Have a good one. Superior abscess, distance, eccentricity, distance, inclination, distance. Oh, I see. I seem to have pulled that one out twice. So that one's right. That's right. That's right. Okay, so it's the orbital distance. Well done for spotting that. Yep, it is definitely a drag. I should say sol there, not kilometers. I've obviously copy pasted that down too far. This is of course the danger when you're just dragging things constantly and copy pasting things a lot. That's when human error always creeps in. That's very true, actually. Future Dan would have been scratching his head wondering what on earth he'd done. I'm just impressed that you guys are paying that much attention. Because I'm clearly not. this is another good example of where I've not kept to my naming convention. Like, I've put the word star before the object there and after it here, which means it doesn't appear together on the list. So I'll take the one after it. Yeah. Actually, no. Oh, not yet, CSI, no. That's turning out to be a correct pain, that one is. I think, from what we've been able to see so far, the issue seems to be related with the web server timing out. Now, I'm using a web server in the US, which is just one I've used for many, many years, just for hosting websites and things. And what seems to be happening is that the code is hanging, waiting for a response from the server, but because it then doesn't complete, it's causing the crash. So there's no protection in the code to account for the fact that it's timing out. So yeah, that needs further investigation. So either it needs moving off of the server that it's on, because the server is obviously responding way too slowly, or protection against that happening needs adding to the code. Why is that there? Yeah, definitely, Tegel, I do agree. And we'll definitely be doing that when we set up the website for the in-game aspects. So things like backer rewards and managing backer systems, we want all that to be on the website. But of course, if the website is running really slowly in terms of its server queries, then it needs moving anyway. Yes, exactly, CSI, because it's actually not even running on a background thread. So yeah, it is. So basically, the main thread is waiting for a response from the server, which never comes, and then therefore it just crashes the whole thing. It's a massive pain. I can't remember why that's there. I'm assuming it's because I'm hiding the knowledge level required box. I'll plug it in and see. Right, there we go. One monster macro populated. Apart from that. What's your problem? This might be an issue. Okay, so it doesn't like the fact that we're doing an async task in a macro. So obviously it's not liking the fact that we got two references to that with the same macro name. It shouldn't make too much of an issue if we make this a blocking load, because the image that it's loading is like 2 kilobytes or something, so it's not exactly a huge amount of loading time. I would have rather have done that asynchronously, but we'll see. Yeah, I mean, it's not causing any lag, so we're good. Right, so that's the long range. Oh yeah, it's the medium range one, wasn't it? Okay, it's not choosing the right page, just to be different. Actually, I don't think we were using that Boolean. I think we were using that one instead. Yeah, there was method to that madness. Because I was going to make that a more generic Boolean as opposed to mode specific. Try that a sec, and it should be page 1 as well, shouldn't it? So yeah, so page 0 is that one, page 1 is that one, so it should be widget switcher page 1. Try that again. So everything on here should be exactly the same as the long range. That looks right, that looks right, that looks right. They all look right. Yeah, that looks right. They should be visible because we have level 1 knowledge. Interesting. So we're not showing and hiding the data there, seemingly. Which is odd because that is actually part of the macro. Oops. And it's doing it fine there. See, the whole reason I made this a macro is so that having everything working here should mean it should automatically work on the other modes because it's literally the same macro. Oh, and it does now. Wow, typical. Weird. Why didn't it do it before? Let's try this system. So yeah, see, there shouldn't be anything there because we haven't scanned it yet. Okay. So we're storing our knowledge level there. Okay, we're doing a simple select on that, so it must be the scan level that it's not actually seeing properly. So it must be this that's failing. Loop the data, see if there's a match. If there is, we grab a copy of the knowledge level, and then we output that. Otherwise, hang on, that needs changing. Alright, so ideally we need to make sure that that's assigned 0 before we go ahead and do any looping or anything. because it will remember its last value. So whatever the previous run was, it will remember that. So we want to make sure that we zero that out before we do anything each time. Okay. I don't think that was necessarily the problem, but it might have helped. Yes, Grayson, I will rescale these surfaces to fit the screen. That's probably like the last thing I will do before the build goes live. Okay, so you are correctly showing it, and you are correctly not showing it. Correctly not showing it. And correctly showing it. Okay, so they work. So if I now scan this system.
Initiating long-range survey. Long-range survey complete.
Right, now it is there. So, okay, so that worked. And it's there as well. Okay. Okay, perhaps it was that then. That seems to be working now. Okay. Yeah, I've been debating whether or not to put the Roche limit as part of the temperature regions, because the Roche limit from the star is obviously 400,000 kilometers, which is actually beyond the lava line. I guess because this particular star, being an L class, isn't even hot enough to create a lava world, you know, outside of its Roche limit. To be honest, this is probably only really an issue for L classes. I don't think we'll have that issue with any M class worlds. It's definitely interesting though. This is one of the things I've actually found quite fascinating with this data now that it's generating properly, is just, you know, instinctually now knowing that, you know, no planets can survive, you know, inside of the Roche limit, which naturally means, you know, we can't have lava planets around this particular star. I don't know why that fascinates me, it just does. But yeah, tiny little system. Some crazy orbits. Yes, Delta. Yeah, I was planning to put a build out 2 days ago and then yesterday, and the issue I had was this code here wasn't working and was causing all kinds of issues. This is now all fixed, so we are good to go. So we've done our medium range, now we just need to do the same with the short range, and then we can do the planets. So Sorry. Short range. That one. Just wondering whether or not we need that as part of the naming convention. Yes, Mercury is definitely spelled correctly now. Mercury. And we've got all the levels with the same name as well, so unless I've spelt it wrong somewhere else, it should be spelt correctly everywhere. Yeah, I do seem to make an unusually large amount of typos. I don't know whether it's bad keyboard or lazy fingers or a combination of both. That's true, Firstus. A lot less work to do. Oh, funny you should mention that, actually. So I've now added that to the data. So when you start a new game, all of Sol will already be fully explored to level 3. The problem is I can't retrospectively update that to existing save games. So you'll have to actually physically go and scan Sol if you're not starting a new game. Partially, Anasi. I needed to calculate the disk radius, and I couldn't do that without knowing where the last planet was. And then after having actually worked out that, it was all of about, I don't know, half an hour's work to add the Kuiper Belt objects. It's just a bit of value add, really. Oh, for sure. It's one of those quick wins. It's, you know, it often goes like that. You know, you'll want to do something which you think is relatively straightforward, and it's a, you know, weeks and weeks and weeks of fighting it for what ends up being not very much in returns of, you know, in terms of the actual return you get from it. Yeah, thought that would happen. But yeah, with something like that, it turned out to be really, really simple, just to throw some pre-made dwarf planets at the Kuiper Belt, because all the code to do it already exists. You know, we're just telling it to make dwarf objects. So we're not even having to jump through the hoops of doing the core mass accretion or anything like that. We're just saying, right, between this distance and this distance, scatter a few dwarf planets, and then call it job done. So it really was very, very quick and easy to do. Yeah, so the way we're going to handle things like asteroid belts and I guess more specifically rings around planets is we're going to use the ability we have to spawn objects on the fly. So using the seed for the system, we'll drive the spawning of small objects with that seed. So we'll be able to, again, spawn what could potentially be trillions of small objects in a given radius around a certain point in space. So you won't see them on the long-range sensors, and you may not even see them on the medium range if they're really, really tiny, but they'll be there on the short range. So you'll have things like just individual rocks within a couple of kilometers of the ship, and we'll spawn them as you fly around. So as the ship is moving in local space, we'll constantly have a radius around the ship where objects are spawned, so they'll come into view as you're flying along. Those ones are, yes, technically easy in terms of adding just the stellar types. So we could add a white dwarf in there, but the reason I haven't done them yet is because I haven't gone through the research of stellar densities and knowing how many white dwarfs are there per region of space. How does that change in the inter-arm regions versus the arm regions? And there's lots of individual aspects of those which I don't have the data for readily. Main sequence stars are easy because they tend to follow a fairly linear trend in terms of the relationships between all the different aspects of those stars. So things like radius versus temperature tends to be fairly linear for main sequence. But when you start stepping off of the main sequence into giant stars and white dwarfs, you no longer have those linear relationships. So I'm going to have to go down a bit of a research rabbit hole in order to add things like the T-Tauris and the white dwarfs. So yeah, not quite as quick and simple as just adding them. We can add them. The facility to add them is there within the code. In fact, we can add any type of object to the galaxy really, really easily at this point. But obviously we don't want to do that until it's backed up with science. So we want to, do the research and then spawn them appropriately rather than randomly, if that makes sense. Moons CSI, they are harder because of the relationship between the parent and child objects. So right now, the reason we don't have multi-star systems is because we are defining the central object of the system, i.e. the star, and then we're using that point in space to define the orbits of all the planets that are orbiting around that star. Once we start having a non-zero point as our point of reference, and then multiple stars within the system, you then have that multi-treed structure to the layout of the system. And we have the same problem with moons. So fixing moons is also fixing multi-star systems at the same time. And it's going to require essentially a complete overhaul of how those systems are generated. So rather than kind of the step-by-step approach we're using now, it needs to be a little bit more dynamic, where we define the system berry center as our central point, and the system berry center will always be at the 0 point. And we then work out whether or not that is a star or multiple stars orbiting a single berry center. And then we have to decide, do those stars also then have planets? And then we have to work out, okay, so what's the Hill spheres of those stars versus one another? And is this group of planets going to overlap this group of planets when those stars are orbiting? And the whole thing gets very complicated, so it needs a complete overhaul and a complete different structure to it in order for us to add moons and multiple stars. It's one of those things where, when I first started writing the system to build star systems, I didn't do that to begin with as step one, and in hindsight it would have been better to not take the easy path and start with multi-star systems, and at that point the whole thing would have been easy, but that's a job we have to go back and do at some point. Yes, Archer, I have my hair cut. In fact, I even told my hairdresser about you yesterday. Yeah, exactly, CSI. Moons will be added on Tuesday. Yeah, genuinely, I did. I said someone on the stream keeps complaining about my hair, so I'm getting it cut. Can't see behind my mic. Right, so we want short range now, don't we? So that's that one. That's the macro. We don't want the macro. We want... Oh, that's the planet one. Too many tabs. So you want that, you want that, you want that. Then short range. It's true. As soon as my hair reaches a certain point, I do kind of do the whole Mad Professor thing. It grows more at the sides than it does anywhere else. I get this kind of like Doc Brown thing going on. I used to have long hair back in the day. Yeah, we dodged to put it there, Ian. Save that before anything bad happens. I did try that, Clucky, but having them in a line makes it easier to read. Because if you incorporate the unit denominator as part of the actual number, you end up with a jaggedy edge, which doesn't look quite as neat or easy to read on the eyes. And I'll show you in a sec what I mean. Yeah, I was thinking about making that a toggle. Obviously, right now we're just dumping the data onto the screen, but there's a few extra buttons I do want to add to here. So I won't do it for the demo update, obviously, because we're already like super late for that. But yeah, when I do the next iteration of this, we'll have toggles for things like percentage of sol and like on the spectral analysis, being able to toggle different chemical traces, things like that. Yeah, it definitely does. Okay, that should be it done. And assuming I've not made any mistakes, which is never a guarantee, I should have the same data now for stars on all 3 tabs. So, short range. Overview is in the wrong place. What is going on there? No data, which is expected. Medium range. No data, which is expected. Long range. No data, which is expected. Okay, so we'll do a quick survey.
Initiating long-range survey.
Yeah, exactly. Those 70 spectral graphs will be completely dynamic with toggleable materials.
Long-range survey complete.
You'll be able to see, which ones are the hydrogen lines and such. Okay, so spectrum is present. Spectrum is present. Oops, short range. Spectrum is not present. Okay, so short range fail. Oh, and it's gone from there as well. Interesting. Right, so we've definitely got some kind of bug where randomly it's not loading the right scan level. It seemed to take me going to the long range to unlock it. So it hasn't refreshed the fact that we've scanned that. Neither has it refreshed it on the medium. So see this number 7 that's coming up here is the system reading the fact that there are 7 objects within the knowledge base. So it definitely has knowledge of all of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so that's all 7 of these. So it's telling us that it knows that 7 exist. So they're in the data. It's definitely saved it, but it's not reading from it. Now I suspect when we go to the long range, that will start to populate. So long range, it's now there. Right, okay, so yeah, so going to the long range version is loading the data. So we need to work out what is the long range doing differently. But it's definitely saving it, so that's the main thing. So it's a display bug, not a saving bug. Okay. Oh yeah, we need to sort out what's going on with that as well. Yeah, exactly, Ian, and it does on the other modes. So yeah, it should be doing that by default. I shall see in a second what it's actually doing. Let's just go and look at that summary a minute. Why is that dropped down there? Weird. What was our height for that one? 40. I thought it was 40. What are we using for the other ones? Okay. That's all fixed. Yeah, the tablets in the game will be usable, and they'll have things like crew rosters and updates on the current data relevant to what you're doing. Mainly when it comes to like launching missions and things, so the selection of a ship and a mission, all that happens back at Earth. So if you wanted to launch a different mission with a different ship, you'll need to go back to Earth to do that, or start a second save game on a different ship. Right, so before we move on to doing the planets, let's just make sure that data is being updated appropriately once it's done its scan. So when we click the different modes, it's definitely doing a refresh of our explored locations array. So this array, which is replicated, this stores all of the knowledge of locations which have been explored. That includes how many explorable bodies there are, which simply takes the length of how many planets there are, and obviously data for each of those, which is basically not that one, the ID of the object and its knowledge level. So the ID is the seed, and the knowledge level is 0 to 3. So it's quite straightforward, but it's making sure that is properly loaded. So yeah, so on the long range, we're not actually forcing a refresh of the knowledge. But are we on the medium? Yeah, we're doing that there. Yeah, so one of the things we're doing is when you click the medium range button, we are refreshing the exploration data for that location, which we're storing as part of the sensors data as our current location knowledge. That could very well be that could be what's not happening, to be fair. And then when we do our scans, yes, we're not, unless we're doing it here. No, that's just the general update. Yeah, so all we're doing is updating and broadcasting the array. So we're definitely updating the array and sending it out, which is why it's flagging up as being the right number of objects when we click the tab. What we're not doing is we're not doing it here. So we are refreshing our list of targets automatically, which is what this is doing. But I think before we do that, it would perhaps be useful to do this. Because I was doing it every time you click on an object, which is a little bit too much, to be honest, because one of the things it's doing is, in order to identify the knowledge for the location you're in or selecting, it needs to loop around all of the explored locations. Now obviously over time this array is going to get quite big. So the size of this array is directly proportional to how many star systems you've scanned. So if you've been playing for 6 months and you spent 6 months scanning star systems, then this array could be multiple thousands of entries. So we don't want to be looping through that array too often. In fact, we only want to do it only when necessary. So okay, so no, we are updating the location knowledge here after we've done our survey here. And the same with the short range, so just making sure that we're actually using the right one. Okay, yeah, so we're assigning our location knowledge to this variable here when it's a freshly scanned system. And then we're also assigning it here if it's a system we've already been to. So we're definitely assigning a value to it in both instances. And then that's what we're passing out. So the question then becomes, when we're reading the data, are we reading it from the wrong place? Yes, we are. Right, so the reason the long range is working and the short range and medium range is not is because we're using the selected location knowledge. So that's basically the star system that you have clicked, which is only relevant in the long range. Of course, on the medium range and the short range, we're not working with a selected location, we're working with a current location. So that needs to be that instead, because it's a different set of circumstances. So the same with the medium range. We're not working with something we've selected on the long range sensors, we're working with the actual local system that we're in. So we want our current location knowledge. Right, and that should be working now. Let's just verify. Start with a fresh system, so no data and we've got no knowledge levels learned. So if we go sorry, wrong one. If we pick the star, teleport to the star, get blinded, and now so we've got no knowledge level there, no knowledge level there, and of course none on the long range. So if we now scan the star, so of course we've skipped the surveys and just scanned the star. So that should now have the data, which it does. Let's see if we can make it forcibly select that after the scan, so it doesn't deselect it. Medium range, again, we have our data. Good. And of course, where we've done something new which we couldn't do before is we've skipped the surveys and just scanned the object. So if we now look at the long range, you can see the system is only showing us, is that 8%? Yeah, 8% says there. So we've only explored 8% of the system because we've only actually scanned the star directly. And of course the data is there. So that is all fixed and working. Yeah, actually no, something I need to test. So we've scanned it to knowledge level 3 because we did a short range scan. So the question is, will that break when I overwrite that data with the survey?
Initiating long range survey.
It shouldn't do, but it might. See you, Don. Have a good one.
Long range survey complete.
Good. No, it didn't break it. So what it's done, obviously, because we had to future-proof this, it wipes the data when you do a survey, but it also keeps a knowledge of things that you have already scanned higher than level 1. So that's working exactly as intended. And I will just do that on the medium range too. Again, just to be sure that it's definitely doing everything we want it to do. I notice it's not targeting the planets as it goes through them, so I need to change that too. Great, yeah, so we've got level 2 on all of those except the star, which is level 3. So that's exactly what we want. And see, we're already up to 69% explored on that one now. And of course, those last 20 odd percentage points require short range scans of every single one of these. Okay, so there's like I said, a couple of things that need polishing. So whilst the scan was running, it wasn't going through each of the planets. Don't worry about the fact it's still showing the stellar data. It's because we haven't actually given it a level 2 data yet. Level page 2 data on the widget switcher. So it should go through them and target each one as it's doing its survey. So that should be constantly changing whilst the survey's happening. And then this one should be retargeting that object once it's finished. So that's just quality of life polishing really for that. Okay, so I guess with all that now having been done, we now need to get the planet data rendering the same amount of detail as the star, and then we need to do our comparison versus Earth for terrestrial worlds, and then versus Jupiter for gas giants, just to give it that real world comparison. Right, okay, getting there. So we start with the long range. Right, so all of that is going to have to be replaced with our new macro. Do I have anything here that's worth keeping? Don't think I do, to be fair. I suppose I've got the mass of Jupiter. 597. So that's Earth. Yeah, so I'll keep this because I'll need those numbers. So we don't need the overview, we don't need that one. Don't think there's anything here we need. No. So that one can go. Nothing pertinent on there, so that one can go. Right, so we'll keep that one around because it's got some data we need. Pluto is classified as a dwarf planet, I think. Hang on, let me double check. Oh no, icy body. Actually, I'm glad you pointed that out, actually, because it should be a dwarf planet. As should Ceres be as well. Yeah. I think I need to split dwarf planet from terrestrial dwarf planet to icy dwarf planet for those, either side of the frost line. Yes. No, it should definitely be a dwarf planet. So I'm doing the knowledge level there, so I don't need it. Don't need it there. Make sure they're the same. Yeah, okay. Okay, now we just need our planet data. Although we can get rid of a bunch of this, can't we? So lava line, that can go, that can go, that can go. So the summary should, that should already technically just be done. Right, long range summary. Planet. So if I just unplug those ones a second. Will it let me compile? Yes. Yeah. So we should be able to test that really quickly. Yeah, I'm in two minds about Pluto. I think, yeah, technically, Pluto is a trans-Neptunian object. It's part of the Kuiper Belt, and it's not cleared its orbit, and therefore it's not a planet. Using the technical description or the technical classification, but I think Pluto is an honorary planet. I think it's earned its right to be known as a planet. You know, in terms of what it represents to the human race and to science and to history. So Pluto is an honorary planet as far as I'm concerned, even if it's not technically a planet. Right, so these descriptions need sorting out. That's true, Carlton, actually, yeah. So we need... Oh, actually, no, before I do that... just wanted to check the Sol planets. Shouldn't be too far from Sol. Okay, so text box needs to wrap. Yeah, so we should have our descriptions for the new ones. Great. Right, so you definitely need to wrap. Auto wrap 0. Yeah, that should be fine. So that should make it wrap now. I think I made those size 9 with 150. Yeah, same as these. So size 9, 150. Yeah. Easier to read. Yeah, I'll copy these from the star, I think. So these should be the same as the stellar ones. Yeah, Pluto and Charon are technically a binary system. The Berry center is outside of Pluto's radius, therefore they are technically a binary pair. But we haven't got the ability to add that yet as part of the Galaxy Gen, so that'll be one of the things that will be supported once we have moons. Make sure all these things are appropriately named now. Just realised I typed song there. Yeah, Planet X is an interesting one actually. I was thinking about adding a gas giant far out in the depths of the Kuiper Belt somewhere. I think if we can find some clear science on it, then yeah, definitely. Of course, I've put Earth in here, but it won't always be Earth we're comparing against. It will also be comparing against gas giants, so yeah. It can stay as Earth, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, for sure, CSI. That's kind of the point with that update, is that we'll be able to have you know, a much wider array of possibilities, from moons of moons to binaries with a single moon. So you could have a couple of binary planets like Pluto and Charon with a moon orbiting the two of them. So we'll have that ability. These are going to require distances, and this is kilometers or AU, so that's going to have to be a variable as well. Just realised that these are named completely wrong anyway. It should be distance. Hang on a minute. So what we got here? So we've got so Roche limit will keep. So obviously planets have Roche limits too. So we'll keep the Roche limit. We don't need that. So Roche limit and Hill sphere, we'll keep those for planets. But of course we don't need Kuiper belt. Sure, I'm actually on the right macro here. Yeah, planet. Panicked then. Right, so Roche limit, Hill radius, and then we got our semi-major and minor axes, apparatuses, period, eccentricity, inclination, orbital period, and average distance. Which means we do not need those anymore. Rename these to planets so that I don't get confused, because I do get confused. And this isn't going to be photosphere, this is going to be atmosphere. So what do we need? So we need the overview, we need the orbital characteristics, we need the physical characteristics, we need the atmosphere, but we also need the surface environment as well. So yeah, so that's going to have to be a separate data handling thing. And on the surface one, we'll handle things like percentage of water coverage, crust thickness, that kind of thing. As you know, crust thickness can go on that one, and crust composition can go on this one. Yeah, that should do it. We can delete the ones off here that we don't need. Yeah, that would be really cool, actually, Carlton. And there are lots of interesting edge cases we need to cater for, like a gas giant which is so close to the star it's been fully stripped of its atmosphere, so all you're left with is like just a solid ball of iron. That could be really cool, just like a big bowling ball in space. Yes, Ian. So things like the presence of plant life and bacteria, that sort of thing, that will all be in the surface data, or indeed, alien civilizations. Although civilization, I think we'll have as a separate box again. So that's just natural life rather than intelligent life. World of Joni, we're doing it basically day by day in terms of the demo update. So all of the things I'm doing right now are so that we can put the demo update out, and we're just assessing it on a daily basis. So we're talking hopefully a couple of weeks. It just depends on how quickly I can get this done. Obviously, with me being ill before Christmas and then Christmas, we are a couple of weeks behind where we wanted to be. Well, to be honest, we're at least a month or more behind where we wanted to be, but that's game dev for you. Things never happen as quickly as you need them to. So this one needs to be a limit. At least it's easier to calculate the hill radius on planets because you're just comparing it to the star. Yeah, it's true that CSI actually. There's been a lot of bugs which have just surprised me. Well, surprised is a strong word because bugs are expected. Perhaps annoyed is a better word. Actually, average distance kind of it's better off there, isn't it? So yeah, so we deal with our Roche limit and our hill radius, then we do our periapsis, apoapsis, then we're missing our semi-major and semi-minor axes, so they need to go in there as well. It's more like it, so yeah. And to be perfectly honest, we don't necessarily need the comparisons to Earth. In fact, some of these are completely irrelevant to Earth. Like the only ones that are perhaps interesting to know would be things like the Roche limit, but like the inclination and apoapsis compared to Earth or Jupiter is kind of irrelevant. That's more for the physical characteristics. So in the interests of keeping this data well organized, I think if we delete that, that's keeping it in line with the stellar data. Right, so we've got Roche limit, hill radius, semi-major, semi-minor, apoapsis, periapsis, eccentricity, inclination, orbital period. Yeah, because velocity, so orbital velocity is another one. see how much of this we're actually already calculating. If we're not calculating this already, then I might trim that one out for now. But we'll have a look. Right, so that needs to be bigger. Something like that. Yes, first is the danger deck. So yeah, I'm going to actually do the framework properly around that ring, so that'll remove the trip hazard. If you're on our Discord, Carlton, on the backer systems channel, there's a spreadsheet that I shared where you can go and add the basics for your system. So right now we're just putting the systems in place, so it'll have its location, its name and its type, but it won't have the designed planets yet, so it will just generate procedural planets, but you can definitely put your system in the game. Yeah, have a look at the pinned messages, because it's one of the pins. In the next patch cycle, so when I start on 2.2.6, I'm going to see if I can squeeze in the system designer tool. There's a few prerequisites surrounding that. So organizing the data in a flat SQL table is kind of step one. That then gives us nice, clean parent and child ID fields that we can fill in, which allows, that's really the first step in allowing things like moons. Once we've got that, then we can basically feed into that data from the in-game tool. So things like things like planetary surfaces, like the amount of water coverage there is, the shape of the continents. There are going to be sliders you can change for that sort of thing. So you'll be able to have full control over the procedural generation to change the look and feel of the planet that you're making. There will be some limits to that. So obviously we want to keep all of the systems scientifically accurate. So we can't have ice giants right up against the star. So within the system, when you place a planet, it'll give you a list of valid options for that location, and that's going to be based on the equilibrium temperature. So obviously the closer you are to the star, the hotter that planet's going to be, and that's going to change the valid options you'll be able to pick from for the type of planet that you can put there. But you'll be able to move things around and tweak the system how you want it, and then play with all the procedural percentages to tailor the look and the feel, and come up with a system that looks the way you want it to look. I can give you an example, actually. Or can I? Yes, I can. Sorry, choking on tea. material instance. No, we didn't want that. There's an instance of that. Right, so the tool that you have as a backer to customize planets and things is essentially going to be this. So here is an Earth-like world. Now, things like the temperature, so the temperature of the planet will drive some of the values. So, like, you know, the amount of coverage of ice there is on that world. That's going to be the only way you can control that is by moving the planet in its orbit. So obviously, you know, the warmer the planet is, the less ice coverage there will be. You know, there are various different things you can play with for that. It would be nice to have some control over it. So, you know, if you wanted your planet to be in an ice age, you know, we could definitely, you know, cover the planet with ice if need be. But for things like the continents themselves, you'll be able to change, you know, the look and the feel of the continents. Oh, I was playing with the wrong one. Hang on. That one? Yeah, that one. So, yeah, you'll be able to mess around with the seeds to, you know, drive the look and the feel of the planet you want to make. And you'll also be able to, you know, change colors and things. So if you wanted a different colored surface, there will be, you know, clamped values. So if you wanted something which was kind of really green and lush, you can do that. If you wanted something that was a lot more sort of arid and desert-like, you know, obviously the options will be there to do that within a certain range. Again, we don't want like pink planets or anything stupid like that. Yeah, so here's an example of what we don't want. One of the things I'll be adding to this at some point is things like forestry coverage and habitation as well. So we've got things like, where is the life code? So of course we've got our life mask here, which is just, you know, rendering surface lights. But what I want to do is expand that mask so that it starts colouring in grey. So rather than just having lights on top of the surface, you'll also have, you know, actual physical structures as well. So you know, for a large built-up city, you'll actually, you know, see all greys and blacks and dark colours around where the city would be. So we can see that from orbit. But there's a lot I need to do to this system yet to flesh that out. But that's a general idea of what the in-game tool is going to look like. You'll have a planet you can spin around, and lots of different sliders you can play with to change the look and feel of the planet. And then all of this data goes into the database table, and that's what we store and import into the game so that it's there for everybody to see. And that is essentially the same procedural system which is driving all the procedural star systems that are out there. We're just giving you control over that system. So rather than it picking these values procedurally, you're specifying them manually. So you're basically you're manually taking control of that procedural system for your custom star system. Yeah, I'll save that. I'll save the pink Earth. Well, it's funny you should say that, Delta, because in order to render the holo display, we have to, sorry, not the holo display, the surface map of the world. We're already doing a texture projection for that, so we can display it in 2D. So that 2D projection of the surface does exist within memory. So if we can find a way of exporting that to a PNG, then yes, we can export surface maps outside of the game. That would be great if we can get that done. So I wanted to move average distance on this one, so stick that under there. So we got semi-major, semi-minor, apoapsis, periapsis, and then average distance, because they're all kind of distance-based values. And then we need to do the same here as well. Otherwise all the lines cross one another in a horrible way. Better? Okay. Yeah, sure thing, Delta. I'll see if I can make that happen. It shouldn't be too hard. We already have the texture rendered, so outputting it shouldn't be too difficult. Have a good one, Ian. It was an example of what we don't want, Claire. You're welcome, Basti. It's good fun to share it. Carlton, yeah. So one of the things that we want to incorporate into the surface data is exactly that. So if we have different spectrums of sunlight, then how is that going to affect the plant life on the planet? It's because I thought erroneously that because our sun is strongest in the green spectrum, that's why plants were green. It just seemed logical. Our star is green, therefore our plants are green. That just seemed to make sense. But our plants are green in reality because they absorb red light. So it's that red spectrum that is most efficient for photosynthesis. So in actual fact, it's got nothing to do with the green light at all. But things like that we want to take into account. So I remember reading once that on an M-class planet, so M-class star, plants would have black leaves because the M-class star is so weak in terms of its output. The plants would be black to absorb as much of that energy as possible. So little things like that are stuff we definitely want to factor into our planet generation to make sure that they are, again, scientifically plausible. some of these are in the wrong order, aren't they? So we want semi, major, semi-minor, periapsis, apoapsis. Is that right? Semi-major, semi-major, apo, peri. Eccentricity, inclination, orbital period, and then the speed, which we don't yet model. Have a good one, CSI. And I'll try not to break too much in your absence. Make sure those are variables. I hate it when it does that. So it won't let me capitalize that A because it's already an A. So I have to change it to like a B, and now I can capitalize it as an A. Saving that before I lose it. Just lose our spacer. That one's actually degrees, isn't it? Actually, no, that one's a percentage. Which means I need to change the font, annoyingly. That one is in degrees. That one is in kilometers a second. And that one is in days. The font I'm using doesn't actually have a percentage symbol, which is madness. Which is Euro style, I believe. Oh no, my chroma for this one. Yeah, so my chroma doesn't have a percentage symbol. So I think I used Conthrax as a replacement for it. Right, so we should be able to populate some of this now. velocity in there yet, so I'll just make a space for it. I will add that. So hopefully there's nothing missing there. We can compile. Alright, which one are we missing? For anything? No, I don't think I do, so it's fine. Yes, we don't need Kuiper Bell or Cloud on that one. Let's see what we get. So we're not calculating the Roche limit or hill radius for planets yet, so that just needs to be added. That's clearly wrong. Is it doing that? So it's the right value, only it should be obviously in degrees. So in AUs, not degrees. The eccentricity is reporting 0, and that should be a percentage based on these guys. Oh right, yeah, because it's 0 point something, so of course it's rendering it as a 0. Right, hang on, we can fix that. Right, eccentricity, that's that one. So of course eccentricity is not a distance. This one to always have 2 decimal places, but only 2 decimal places. And that is obviously percent. To be honest, that doesn't need to be a variable because it's never going to change, but yeah, I believe that's fine. Right, so why are these as light years? Because the actual math is sound. So like if the value is greater than 0.1 light years, it'll display the data as light years. Right, I know why. It's because the data for these is specified in centimeters, I think, for the planets. I think. But why would it be? Hang on, so Jupiter Yeah, I think that's in centimeters. We'll try with Earth a minute. So semi-major axis, is that centimeters or meters or kilometers, I wonder. So if we go for meters, well, actually, if we do AUs, so where's astronomical unit there? Yeah, so it is in centimeters. So that many centimeters is practically 1 astronomical unit. So that value is specified in centimeters, which means actually we need to know. So we need to basically multiply the value by that. No, sorry, we need to divide the value by that to convert it to the right format. So if we take, I guess, all of these, divide them by that, which is centimeters to kilometers, and then we'll have our correct input value. Should be all of them. Your percentage anyway. You're in degrees. And these last two. Oh, your average distance, aren't you? Yeah, so you require 1, 2. Try. Oh no, that's clearly not right either. What? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Hang on. What did I do wrong? Oh. So 1 centimetre is that. No, other way around. 1 kilometre is that many centimetres. Sorry, it's late. Brain's not working. Of course it's not that. It is 11:30 p.m. here, and I've been streaming for 3.5 hours, so I will make this the last thing I do. So my brain has turned to mush. That's better. We try this with sol again, just to make sure that the sol values are accurate. There we go. It's always good to check against Earth because we know the values are going to be 1. That needs expanding. I've mentioned this before, but because of the way we're doing the text on top of what is an external widget, it can't be a child of that, which means then it has no awareness of how much text there is. I need to essentially make a new widget class where the text box is incorporated as part of the widget, and therefore it can then expand or contract based on the amount of text. But that's a problem for another day. Hopefully the rest of these fit, or just about fit. Some need some descriptions as well. Yeah, you're right, to be honest. It could do with its own scroll bar. One of the challenges we're going to face is, obviously with the backer systems, some backers are writing a lot of backstory for their systems, and we need somewhere to present that. And to be honest, it's a nice problem to have, because when we start fleshing out the procedural races, we need a lot of data about their history, their religion, their government, everything about them, their arts and crafts. We need all that data represented somehow on the screen. So with our short range scan, obviously what's happening there, we're generating this flat image as a pop-up. So this just pops up as a window on the screen, and I think what we'll do is we'll have profiles, like a profile page for each alien civilization, so that when you have your description here, we'll have a button for like show more or something like that, and that will just pop up a nice big window with lots of information on it, probably with its own scroll bars as well, so that we can really kind of expand the amount of data we're showing without having to squeeze it all into one tiny little text box. So hopefully that will make life a lot easier. Actually, why is it doing that? Something's gone weird with this one. Oh, is it because we're at the star, maybe? Hang on a minute. Right, so the gas giant works. Right, cloud coverage is working. Day-night terminator is working. There are no text signatures anyway, so that's fine. Right, so was it the star that wasn't working? Yeah, okay, so basically the star isn't generating a surface map, which is why it's showing the old one, and yeah, it's still showing all the old data, so that's fine. Need to remember to do that before the demo goes out. It'll be nice to see the surface map actually of the star, because you'll see all the like the sunspots and things on it. Right, I think then with that I shall call it a night. I'll go ahead and put this out as a build straight away, because things are working about as much as they can at this point. So yeah, I shall continue to crack on with this. In fact, let's switch to Big Me. Hello, Big Me. Yeah, so I'll continue to plug away at this and get this done as quickly as possible. Once all the planet data is done, dusted and working, and I fixed the short range bit, that should be the sensors done for the demo update, which means the only two things that are left then are the tutorial, which shouldn't take too long because it's just rehashing the existing one with the new functionality, and then just doing some modeling work around engineering, fixing the death corridor in engineering, which keeps trapping people, and just a few wall panels here and there. So the light of the end of the tunnel is definitely coming, so we're getting there. Okay, have a good one, have a good week everyone, and I shall see you on Wednesday's stream. Bye for now.